One second.
1,000.
They're still, okay. We're, oh, we still got a couple minutes. You have Derek.
No, I'm trying to get Jake.
Jake's not gonna be ready until the executive session. Yes,
I noticed that others.
yeah, those other.
Good thing I had a late lunch.
Yeah, right.
I figured it would.
Yeah, it takes forever.
Yeah,
It seems like it takes
it
forever.
really makes the night drag on. But still, there's a Netflix series about
Good and just be holding it. Full. You go out to the line to drop them off and you're doing the dance. And they're crazy children.
So we're on, right?
Well, you kind of don't have a choice.
No.
I'm gonna put you over here in the middle.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming for our meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We want to excuse Jake Dempsey. Hopefully he'll be joining us here in a few minutes. And we want to acknowledge Derek Morris on the phone joining us tonight. Let's begin. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Do we have any signed in visitors? Did you sign in?
Yeah, you do.
Did you fill out the sheet?
Second floor. Oh, sorry, yes, we do. We have one. Sorry, Patty, I didn't see that.
All right, Mrs. Crawford, right up here to the podium, smile for the camera.
My name is Patty Crawford, and I would like to address the second reading of policy 3470. And the policy 3470 deals with out-of-state or overnight field trips. At the April 14th meeting, we had the first reading of the policy, and then discussion ensued, which we talked about a circumference of maybe 10 miles or whatever it is that the board chooses to do. And that did not necessarily need to come before the board. I am not sure if I today listened to the presentation and I went through and watched the video of the last meeting. I'm a little bit not sure. I assert, however, that if it takes kids overnight on any activities, that the board continues to approve those. We elected the school board to enact policy to support what we're doing, oversight, and most importantly, to protect students. I think we protect students when we know that they are going, if they are traveling overnight, that we follow the policy that we put out, and it was signed in, I think it was the policy from 2020. And I don't see any changes that I would want. Pull this off the website, the policy. I did not see any changes in this particular policy, but it talked about field trips and out of state and overnight field trips. With the contingent or where we are sitting, we may travel, like say to Ontario, and I think that's the example that we used last month. I don't have a problem with that. I have an issue that if they stay overnight, I would like the board to continue to sign those requests for overnight travel. I think that's prudent. I think it's wise, and I think it's in the best interest of our students. And I would encourage the board to continue to require overnight travel, have the site eyes on it by the board and a signature of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, yes.
All
I
right,
have a question.
go ahead.
Mr. Moore has the
I
question.
would like to know why, with exception to why the board would need to see that particularly. I understand the big field trips and stuff like that they go for a week or what have you. Those are usually scheduled way in advance. So I guess, what is the reasoning behind it other than why can't Mark and Lisa take care of that?
And if I could just make a note that I think it would, beyond the question, there will be an opportunity, because this is on our agenda, to have further discussion as a board, but certainly a question for Patty would be appropriate.
Am I standing for questions or just making comment?
Go ahead, answer the question.
Okay. I believe that when we send students out of district, and even if it's planned a long time in advance, what's the difference if the board knows the kids are traveling out of district or overnight? I believe that it's a prudent thing to do. We ensure that all the, it's all signed and the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. The board knows where our students are. I think that's a responsibility that the board needs to continue to do. And I feel more comfortable. I'm not saying that we can't send kids on activities. I want the board to know when kids travel out of district. I think it's a liability issue. I think it's a safety issue for the kids. And I think we can answer questions that parents or students may have regarding it. It is a prudent measure to continue to do. And I would encourage the board to continue to ask for overnight travel to be signed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We good?
Yeah, I'll use my comments later.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda.
I
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the personnel report, what are pipeline services underneath classified positions?
So that's part of our community center grant. It's a position that we've had there. And so within that, that person works with some community relationships, working to connect services as far as the community school goes. Anything else?
Yeah, and this is, the pipeline services title is the title given by the grant. And so the grant said that there is funding for a position that they entitled pipeline services, which encapsulates what Mrs. Pennington shared in terms of providing, if they're out there looking for services that will benefit the students, families within our community, they're out there reaching for those and bringing them in.
Okay.
And so that's some of the work that goes in. But there are other things that we do in terms of maintaining the food pantry, maintaining the clothes pantry, helping students get the services they need. If it's beyond what something is already provided, they'll be out there looking for a way to get those services for students and families that come in and say, if it's something we don't already have.
Okay, so underneath the information part, it says returning late hire.
So those are classified positions that we hired mostly after December. So it's once we hit a certain point in the year, we no longer, because it becomes more part-time because of the timing of the year, offer benefits or pieces like that. And so because those are temporary positions to finish the year, we will always repost those and then rehire, or if we have other applicants, consider those as well.
So they're temporary,
Yeah, we hired them as temporary this year.
okay,
It's similar to our
Maybe
category 1 certified teachers. We
okay,
hire them late in the summer, in the case of certified. And
right,
because it was so late, we want to make sure that we give ourselves the opportunities to open that up again.
Okay.
And so it's the same kind of thing with these classified positions.
okay. And then on the same column, it says new FTE for tech asset specialist. I'm glad to hear that.
It's
There's a lot of,
it's overdue to have that
yes,
position.
I'm very pleased that we did that because there are a lot of tech issues in the schools that are not always taken care of right away. So I'm glad to hear that. Then my other question, when I asked already about the community positions, and apparently it's just for summer, will they also work out of the community school area?
So are you talking about these ones down here with the temporary assignments?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Those ones are gonna be, it's actually a community, it's a extended program for our elementary students. And so since it's gonna run as summer school, we're gonna host it over here at the middle school.
So that's why there's some teachers
Yeah.
listed.
Yeah.
For summer school.
Yeah, so it's an intervention type of program.
Elementary kids.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Yep.
Sorry.
And normally it would have been held at Heights, but
Mhm.
we're doing some significant upgrades to the fire alarm system. And when they do that, they have to take the existing fire alarm offline.
Okay,
And so they don't want kids in the building when the fire alarm is on.
Yeah, that's not good.
okay. Perfect, thank you. So I move, unless you have any questions. Jake, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye. All right, let's move on to our discussion items. We have a few field trips.
Yep, and if I can make one note, item B, the Skills USA Middleton High School team national competition, we had one student that had qualified for that competition, but that student and their advisors have elected not to pursue that. So they are withdrawing their request for the
Okay,
nationals trip. So the only ones we're considering are A, C, and D.
let's start with A.
So this is the Skills USA Academy team that we had present to us last meeting. They have solidified all of the donations they need to be able to pay for that trip. A lot of different groups that have, I can think of 4 that have donated, and I think there actually might be more than that have donated to help those kids get to the competition. Based on what was listed in the packet, was there any additional questions that you had regarding that trip?
So they did receive funds?
Yes, so
That they requested?
the students will not, it wasn't the same donation that the student addressed when they were here and they
Oh, okay.
presented. It was actually a compilation of about, for that donation, which wasn't quite as sizable, but still was great, along with 3 or 4 others that came together to be able to pay for those. So,
Okay, 'cause that was on there.
Yep.
And so we do, that's the other thing, as far as, I wasn't sure we have enough chaperones.
there'll be 2 chaperones for
One
the
of
3
each?
students. Yes, 1 of each.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Well, I should make note, 1 chaperone will be flying with the students. The other chaperone will be there. Mr. Anger is actually driving the
Oh, okay.
materials. It'll end up costing less to drive it
Oh, then-
than to ship it because of how big and unwieldy it is. So, but when they are there at the competition, both chaperones will be there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Long drive.
Yep, yep. Any other questions on the Skills USA from the Academy? Next one is FFA National Leadership Camp in Washington DC. Again, this is national, this is actually a national more of a learning opportunity, not a competition. But it's an opportunity. I don't know if I've actually had the opportunity in past district. I was over in Washington DC for other legislative things that we were working on as a state, but it was at the same time as this FFA
Oh,
program that they hold every year, and it really is an impressive organization and a great learning opportunity for our students as they go through. And you can see how that is being paid for, and I mean their outline was pretty detailed.
It was. I was amazed at all the different things.
Yeah.
That they are gonna do.
Yep. Any questions on that one?
It looks fun.
Very impressive.
Okay, and then the last one is FFA state contest in Moscow. These are state competitions. So, and would be an overnight trip in Moscow. So depending on how the students do in that competition could determine whether they would qualify to go to the FFA national competition. Again, you can see how it's laid out in the details of the packet.
I'm okay with that one.
Any questions? Okay.
Looks amazing. All right, let's move on to discussion item B.
The football summer equipment request, this is essentially a requirement of IHSAA, that if our students are going to be utilizing there's the letter, and you got the letter there. But essentially, the students are planning to use some of the football equipment during their summer camps, and it just needs permission from the board, so there'll be an action item.
So in the letter.
Yes, please, no, please.
In the letter, it states that that the liability part of it rests solely on the school, the camp, and the clinic.
Right, now so if they're doing a camp or a practice here at the school, it would be our liability, which it would be anyway. This is kind of reiterating what it would be regardless, whether we were using
Okay.
our equipment or not.
Okay.
The camp would be the same. If we were running the camp, then it's our liability. If somebody else is running the camp, it's their liability.
The Eastern Oregon one,
It's their liability that would be covering.
Eastern Oregon,
Yes.
the college
Yes.
itself.
And so then the other, or the clinic, same kind of thing. You camps and clinics that operate the same way.
So they don't, just because it's Idaho High School.
Because it's not sponsored by the Idaho High Schools Association, for us to be a part of their members, they say, if you're gonna use this in off-season, you need permission from the board, and the board needs to make that request of IHSAA, which is what this letter.
Which I do understand that. my thoughts are, yeah, they have a camp here, no big deal, but when they go to Eastern Oregon, do they fill out the overnight request
No.
form?
No, those, the
More
summer
lenient.
summer
Summers.
activities, those are all based on the students and their parents being willing to do that. That's
Okay.
not something that we've
It's like-
done before.
Yeah,
Okay,
And the other thing is, this actually helps. Being able to use our equipment actually helps protect the students because it's something that we're able to maintain and ensure that the equipment they're using is safe. If we were going someplace else and using somebody else's equipment, you know, pads, helmets, those kind of things, it would cost.
yeah.
Okay.
This comes every year, yeah.
I know,
Just
but
formality.
I don't remember. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's all I have on that. That's just a request from,
Perfect. And I just want to make a note that Jake Dempsey has joined us.
okay.
So thanks, Jake. All right, let's move on to curriculum. Mrs. Goodson, coming up.
You want to start with this, correct?
Yes. So I have a committee recommendation from our ELA resource adoption. This adoption is set to run for 6 years, so 2025 through 2031, and I calculated in my own 2 children. Well, let me do crash. 6 years is a long time. I want to, you want to go to the next slide, Mrs. Pennington. Just to reiterate for both the board and for our patrons here, the process that we use to adopt materials, we form a committee. State code says that 50% of the committee has to be parents. So this committee had 18 people on it, so 9 parents, 9 educators. It didn't just encompass, I'll say ELA is it included EL, and it included all special education as well. So we are now to number 6. Where we have a recommendation for the board to bring before you. There are parts that we will need to recycle the loop, and I will explain that in this presentation, but we feel very confident in what we've done with what we're bringing forward. And the committee did a tremendous job, days and days and days of work. So it is much appreciated. When we look, if you want to go to the next slide, at curriculum adoption as a whole, ELA was in phase 1 for this year, and we'll move into phase 2 for next year, partially with the parts we're bringing forward. Science will be for next year's curriculum adoption, so it is part of that 6-year cycle. So let's talk through the recommendations. The K-5 recommendations for foundational reading, the committee leaned into 95% group pretty early on. They have resources that support tiers 1, 2, and 3 of instruction. So when we look at the RTI model, the committee really wanted something that was systematic, that had coherence, not just vertically, but horizontally and between all tiers. So for example, in regular class setting, if a student is learning about something, and if a student needs intervention, they wanted the routines, the vocabulary, the supports to all be similar in tier 2. So it's not a new learning experience for the student. So this was a resource that provides that. So for K-5, we're looking at their core phonics program and then their tier 2 literacy intervention system, phonemic awareness suite, phonics library, and reading comprehension. So that would be on the foundational reading side. Or, if you want to go to the next one. So like I said, this includes special education. So they'll also have access to those tier 2 resources and a tier 3 resource called Reading Achievement Program that is really individualized small group instruction for our special needs students.
Could you outline the 3 tiers, just really generally who fits in each of those
Yeah,
tiers?
so tier 1 would be all students. All students receive that classroom foundational instruction. Tier 2 is a little bit more, they need more support. I'm not getting the correct word for tier 2 right now. They need more finite interventions. And then tier 3, they need really systematic and individualized pieces. So it's the pyramid that we see. You see that in a lot of graphs where we want this big chunk down here to be green and the smallest to be red up on top.
So the tier 2 basically is like the focus groups where
Yes.
teachers in grade levels get
Yep.
together and decide
Yep.
students
yes.
that need that extra
That's-
finance stuff
Yep.
that you mentioned.
Yep.
Not stuff, but intervention type things.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, and it is skill-based, although they put them into grade levels, they are skill-based. So we can intervene at this very specific skill that the student needs, and then we'll have the data to be able to track where they're at. So special education is excited because it'll help with the data needed on their ends as well. You want to go to the next slide? So our extended resource room, so this would be, and I should have put our pre-K through 21. That's what that should say up there, is using a resource called Unique. They have been using that resource. We just want to bring it forward for the next formal 6-year adoption. We got together with our extended resource teachers and they talked about our students' needs. And it was a very similar conversation, the need for coherence, the need for, as they move grade levels, as they move grade bands, to be able to have that same vocabulary, the same routines. And so there's a lot that Unique has to offer. They're in the middle of a name change, so I can't say that a year from now it's gonna be called Unique, but that's what it's called currently. So that'll be for pre-K through our 21-year-old program. For 612, our 612 teachers developed what we call quad text sets. And it's really units that contain 4 different types of text: a target text, a visual text, an accessible text, and an informational text. So it helps provide the students those scaffolds using high interest reading for our students. And so they are bringing forward some digital resources that want to be used. Many of them are free. So Common Lit is one where we get some reading passages from articles. The committee read every book, every article that they put forward. No Red Ink and Quill are both grammar-based resources for our staff. And then for our 6-8 reading intervention class, it's a continued subscription to Scholastic magazine. Again, high interest reading for students where they can focus on a very specific intervention skill. Middle school is, when it comes to intervention, the older the kids get, you need something that is the maturity level for those students to be able to read, yet still help backfill the basic skills that they need support in. For EL, Vista Learning is what the committee would like to recommend. So for K-5, it's called Connect, 6-8 Bridges, 9-12 Engage, and then we are experiencing more newcomers, and so it also has newcomer resources available as well. So when we talk EL for our English language learners, that's the acquisition of English skills. So they're coming here, they may have varied English speaking abilities, and so we want to be able to support them in the best way that we possibly can. All in total, here's the dollar amount. We'll get down to business, right? So this is for a 6-year adoption. So keeping that in mind, we're at a little over $518,000 for this part. Curriculum is expensive, as I've explained. In previous adoptions, most companies have transitioned to a license-based fee, meaning that they cut you off at the end of your contract. It's not like a textbook that we could keep for 20 years or however long we needed to. We actually lose access. So
do we, if we want it the next year, we repay?
this is for the 6-year cost.
Oh, for the 6-year cost, okay.
So
Sorry.
sometimes I get asked, why do we have to pay that every 6 years? What if it's the companies have changed to more of a license-based subscription. With our EL resources, I will say this, working with Mrs. Hutchison, we are getting the book components, because when we looked at the digital components and what it would take to provide that service, we felt that the technology was going to be a barrier at that point in time. So the face-to-face and speaking conversations and writing are going to be more beneficial in that context. So as I mentioned before, we have some continued work in the fall. So this is a partial recommendation, especially on the K-5 level, where we're just bringing forth reading foundations. We still need a resource to pair with 95% group for reading, comprehension, and writing.
We looked at varied resources and nothing fit the bill for what Middleton's needs are. And so rather than say, we're gonna pick the next best, we're gonna take a little bit more time in the fall and try and find exactly the right fit to pair with 95% group. 6-8 would like to explore, or 6-8 and 9-12, I should say, would like to explore pilot options for Newsela plus writing. So this will help with student writing and grammar. Yet when we had access to the resource, we didn't get to see the full resource.
Okay.
And so we're asking, before we buy, we would like a pilot. We would like to
Yes,
actually
please.
see, what it is that we're getting. And knowing that we have 8 school days left, we're not gonna get to see it like we need to see it.
When do you feel like you're gonna have the start date for this?
I hope we start as soon as we can in the fall, and then I hope we wrap up before winter break.
Are you gonna use the same committee?
I'd like to, if possible.
Okay.
Yep.
When did this year's committee start?
January?
I'm just, not to put you on the spot, but just how come it was so late?
A
Well, maybe-
couple of reasons. One, the state's recommended list came out really late. It came out, I want to say, in early November. And then my leave in the fall.
Well, it was Christmas too.
Yeah.
Hope we don't want you to work on Christmas.
I don't think I could have functioned at that point in time. So we were really only 1 month late. Most curriculum adoptions I don't begin until I have one meeting prior to winter break.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why would you not start a little bit earlier? Just my curiosity.
So waiting for the state's recommended list to come out first. When they,
And if I can say, one reason for waiting for that state list is that the state with their resources does a lot of the legwork. That if we took it on earlier, our teachers would then have to do all that legwork in terms of evaluating each of those different curriculums. When you look at the ELA curriculums, how many would you say are out there in the nation? Hundreds.
yeah,
And so the state does a lot of that work of boiling it down to a level that then we as a school district can utilize more effectively, since we don't have the same level of resources that they do.
and even with that, we pulled in all the state resources and it filled the entire training room,
Okay,
like.
yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so it can be a little overwhelming.
That's a lot of reading.
It is.
Yes.
It's a
So I
lot.
appreciate your committee.
I do too. They were absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful.
And I appreciate the teachers too that piloted,
Yeah,
because that really, having observed in one of the second grade classrooms, that really gives you, and I think the teachers themselves, a little bit of a bird's eye view of what's gonna happen, what type of planning they're gonna have to do, and, the
Yeah.
direct instruction, all the different things are involved
yeah,
in
absolutely.
planning it.
And we thank you, Mrs. Goodson,
Yes.
for all your hard work.
It's an
Yes.
honor
Very
to be able to
much.
serve the teachers and the district in this capacity.
Well, thank you.
And then one last for 6-8, wanting to explore for the intervention class, the tier 2 reading, but not necessarily purchase it at this point in time. So
Okay.
we can
Okay.
borrow some of the sped pieces from tier 2, try it out, and see if it works.
Makes
Again, it's that age piece
Mhm.
and the skill piece that get a little trickier the older students get. Any questions that I can answer?
Well, I didn't get to look at all the 54 pages.
There are 54 pages. So that is, if you want to go to the next attachment, Lisa, this is the compilation of all of our 612
Yeah.
English teachers. This was hard work. And the conversations that they had around the work was phenomenal. And they really taken it. So you'll see that each one has a target, visual, accessible, and informational text to make sure we're hitting all of those different kinds of components. Yeah.
I think, and you can expand on this, I think it's important that we understand that the committee of teachers and parents looked at every single one
Yeah.
Yep.
of those, all the pages, so that,
Mhm.
that we're taking the work of that committee that included parents within our community and our teachers
To evaluate.
evaluate.
Yeah,
And it
and
goes, back,
procure, really.
it goes back to what Superintendent Key was saying, you know, on the K-5 and the state did a lot of the lifting for us by the reviews. We had to do all of the review ourselves.
On this.
Yeah, but in the same token, you're not locked into exactly what the textbook then tells you should be teaching.
Right.
I will be bringing in June, these are the main core resources. We have a few supplementals that the committee just needed a little bit more time on, so in June, I'll bring the second part of that
Very good.
recommendation to you. So yeah, they wrote their enduring understandings, their essential questions, and we have everything right there, so super transparent.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
very, very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, let's have Mrs. Hutchinson come on up and, or Hutchison, I say it wrong, sorry. There's lots of similar names like yours out there.
Just a reminder that this presentation is drawing out of a conversation we had a few months ago here as the board, asking for additional information. So he's here to provide that.
Okay, so with our federal programs, this year we've maintained the 4 Title I schools. In those 4 Title I schools, we have 12 employees that we've been able to employ using Title I-A funds. And we chose to use the model of a school-wide model versus targeted assistance. And that's because before there were students who needed help, but we couldn't get to them. Whereas if it's targeted, or excuse me, when it's school-wide, we can actually get services provided to all of our students that need to be served. And that allows us to serve more students that are in a needed basis. So some of the things that we've done this year is that all have completed a school-wide improvement plan. These were listed on the web pages for the Middleton School District. Each school has a family engagement committee where they work together to create activities for the families that attend their schools. These committees meet 2 to 3 times a year and more if needed. And I asked all of the schools, they've all made sure that they have parents on their committees, teachers on their committees, and that they're really looking at the pulse of what their individual schools need. Some of the examples of activities that they've used that have come from those family engagement committees have been things such as a Boo Bash, a time capsule reveal, family engagement nights, PTO sponsored bingo. A lot of our elementary schools have started using their PTOs this year to help with those family engagement pieces. There's grade level music programs, a jogathon, a trunk or treat. They've had family ice skating, skate for a cause, a neon dance. And then they've also had some upcoming award ceremonies such as a glow dance, talent show, a spring parent picnic, and a family math literacy night are some other events that they've had. One of the things that we made sure is all the Title I schools work to have each school use staff and parents to establish the activities that are being offered. And then one example of how an elementary school is involving their PTO is helping sponsor family and community engagement activities. The middle school and academy both utilize specific committee that is made up of staff and parents. So versus a PTO component, they're actually utilizing a specific committee for theirs. The academy also recently added a new position this year, which is one of their responsibilities is to actually help increase the family engagement. And I believe that's through the community school piece when I was talking to them. They're also really starting to utilize those surveys that are sent out each year to the parents and the students, in which each school analyzes the data to see what's going on well and what changes need to be made. The administration then takes that information to their leadership teams, their family engagement committees, and their PTOs to help plan those activities. So those, just like the high school had to do theirs, I happened to be there today when they made the announcement to do their student engagement survey. So they're using those surveys to drive that. McKinney-Vento.
Before we go on,
Yes.
The others, I just had a question. Prior to choosing the school-wide, did we use the targeted assistance
I believe that's what we used back in
It,
2005 when I first started.
it would have had to be targeted assistance because those are the only
That's
two
what I
models.
thought, but I
Those are the
just
only
was
two
curious how
models the federal
far back.
government allows. I believe the switch to school-wide was like 2015, 14, or was it earlier than that?
No, that would be about right, because it was with Assistant Superintendent Ariola,
15, okay.
is when we made that change.
I'm just, I would like to see data. Can you go back that far to the targeted assistance to see where kids were as to where they are now?
I don't think I have, the furthest I'm seeing right now on the state's website, a lot of it's only going back towards COVID, when we lost that discrepancy of things. I can go back and look and see if I can find any
Okay.
data to go back further.
I just have a hard time with the school-wide and not having a certified Title I teacher. Because all the 12 employees that you have, are they not assistants and people that haven't had training?
They are assistants, but they have had training. So this year, those paraprofessionals actually went through small group instruction strategy training with me every time that the paras had training that they were receiving instructional. Last year, they went through various trainings, such as they went through go-to strategy trainings that is recommended by the state. And we also had some other various trainings that were provided to them. So we have built-in PD for the paras to attend during the school year. So they're receiving ongoing professional training.
And they also, on top of that, with federal requirements, have to pass a paraprofessional praxis.
They
So,
do a
an
practice
exam.
as well.
Yeah, they all have to pass that exam before we can employ them in those positions. So they do take that and pass that as well.
Okay, I just, once again, I know several of you have heard me say, but I just really feel like that the four schools that have the Title I programs, it would be nice if they each had a Title I teacher and then the assistants, which could be 8 assistants. If you're looking at still, I mean, it may cost more.
Well, and part of that shift when that I mean, I was in the meeting when the conversations happened with the principals and a lot of the focus around that. And the intention truly was to change from a model where we would isolate and say, well, only these students need help, to ensure that we were helping all students.
But sometimes when you're helping all students, and this is just my philosophy, that you dilute the program. And I've worked with assistants and paraprofessionals a long time.
Right.
And I'll be honest, there are, if you put a little bowl and you pick, you're not gonna pick out every one of them that are gonna do a superb job or a job that a teacher would understand.
Well, and in
In terms-
combination with that, we also then increased the RTI focus. And so when we looked at what we've done with RTI, as we've gone from the targeted assistant model to the school-wide model,
Mhm.
the RTI piece has increased and grown. So then we can really focus on all tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 students. And so those students that would have fallen into that Title I category,
Mhm.
we now are able to serve in those tier 1, tier 2 models.
So they're like getting the double.
They are. And keep in mind that, yes, the assistants deliver the service, but it's really still a certified teacher providing the instruction to them of what they're supposed to do. So there's still a certified teacher guiding that process.
But that teacher is the classroom teacher. So that's another thing we put on their platter of what they have to do as a general ed teacher. Am I thinking correctly?
I think you are to a degree, when you look at the number of students that would be working, that teacher would be working with in a given day. Can one teacher, and this is where I think there's certainly room for study within our district to see, working with any districts that are on targeted assistance to get a kind of a comparative view. But if you look at one teacher who is able to, let's just say that they can faithfully work with 30 students, that they can get very concentrated intervention with those 30 students throughout the day. Or you can take the 4, or I guess 3 per school, 3 Title I aides per school, and each of them can help. Let's just say that we can get up to 50 or 60, let's just double that. And they aren't able to themselves give it to that level, but together with their teachers and the RTI system that's put in place, because one of the reasons for moving to a school-wide is to allow the RTI process to work through, which then moves the students from, you take all your students and you break them into these ability groups that allows them to get focused attention where they need it. When you do it that way, you need additional hands to help make that move. But all the students are kind of getting additional help that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Okay.
And so I think what we would look at in order to address, I think what we want to look at is what that training is and what the steps that each individual teacher is taking, and compare that into a school district that's working in a targeted assistance model, and be able to identify, okay, here's the trade-off. And are we able to make up the difference, or do we identify gaps? Because I think that's really what we want to come down to, is where are the gaps that we're identifying, and are the gaps greater within that targeted assistance model or within the school-wide model? And I think that's certainly worth additional review, because it's been almost 10 years now that we've been on the school-wide.
Yeah, because RTI itself has been around a long time, but it has not taken off in a lot of districts to the degree that it probably should have.
That it needs to in order to meet the gaps that are created.
Yes.
No, I think that's a great way to approach, and I think we can work with Mrs. Hutchison and identify how we're working with it here, and reach out to some of these targeted assistance schools.
Okay, that'd be nice. I would be willing to help
Awesome.
in any way that I could.
I think that would be great.
Definitely. And I will commend our paras, I will tell you, are eager, like they are asking, they're like, give me more instruction. They want to be the best instructors for our
And
kids.
in no way am I saying that they're not.
No.
And I'm really happy to hear that they do take a praxis and do take that extra,
Piece to take.
piece to get to where they need help kids. So I appreciate that.
So our next one is also still under Title I. It is our McKinney-Vento. We have finished our federal monitoring of our American Rescue Plan grant that was received right after COVID. We have provided approximately 317 services for families within our district this year alone, and that averages at about 2 services per day for our McKinney-Vento students and families. Title I-C, and we're, a lot of times you'll hear the term migrant students. These are our migrating students that families move for agricultural purposes. The qualifications are that students or parents work in agriculture and have made a qualifying move in 3 years, causing a disruption in education. So we've actually found several of our students that maybe the families don't move, but the students are the ones being the agricultural worker and are doing the moving. And so we've been able to qualify students there. Currently, we have 139 qualifying students in our district alone. Some of the things that we've done this year to support families have been we provided school supplies. We have our parent advisory council meeting. We invite our English language learning parents because quite a few of our migrant families are not part of the English language learning program. And so we invite them to come in, and we have still have our graduation specialist at the high school. We have summer school in person and a monitored K-5. We offer 2 different options the state allowed us to add at home. So we provide school supply or this, what we're using. And then we have, my family liaison actually checks in with parents once a week, asks them to see if they have to send pictures of what they're doing or report what they're doing. And if she can't get a hold of them by phone to check in with them, she's making a home visit, knocking on their door, asking them how is it going? What supports do they need from her? We actually just had numbers. I have 35 students currently signed up for in-person migrant summer school starting just at the end of May. So that's, and that's been about what we've had the last 2 years. 6-12, it's really a lot of fun to watch my 6th through 12th graders, because the minute they're done with 5th grade, they ask me, they're like, but can we come back and help? So they become the teacher's aides. And the only way they're allowed to come back and help is they know that they can't have any discipline referrals, and they have to have passing grades, because I told them I want good role models coming back for those students. And so we've got several students coming back to do that. And then we actually have students that are participating in the state's it's called the MSLI, which is the Migrant Student Leadership Institute. When I first started, we had never had any students in this. We've had one, it's slowly progressed, and I think we have 4 that applied this year that were accepted into it, that will be attending it. So that's part of our migrant summer school events that are going to be happening. Title III, that is our English language learner. And we have Title III through the federal part, and then we have the state EL combined. Right now, we have 120 qualifying students, 111 students who have exited EL services. So if that gives you an idea how many in our district have either been or currently are EL students. We've done the state testing, which was approximately 4 hours per student, and we just barely got scores. I just got those delivered, and I'm looking to see what kind of growth and analyze that and get those to the schools too, so they can see how those have happened. And then of course our parent meetings, we hold those twice a year, and so we just finished that. We were a little bit later in the season, but we still got it done in April. Title III, we've coordinated with the curriculum and assessment director to support needs, or excuse me, I'm sorry, Title II, we're coordinating with the curriculum director there. Title IV right now, that is where our SRO services come out of. It's also helped provide family and community engagement supplies, such as for STEAM events. I know the Heights has used that. And this, actually, right now, we are starting to work on the CFSGA. I get to work on Friday and join the State Department on starting to plan on what we're doing and what regulations they're giving us and guidance that they're giving us for that piece. So that's going to be our big one. So summer school, we're getting those supplies out, and then the CFSGA, we all got the next big one, and that's due by June 30th that we have it submitted. So I'll also be working with Alicia to get those in.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
for that.
A lot of good information.
All right. Let's move on to discussion item E, half-day kindergarten discussion.
So we wanted to just share with the board, where half-day kinder ended last year, or sorry, this year, where it's gonna end this year, and then just thoughts moving forward. So last spring, when we went down to consolidate half-day kinder, part of that decision was regarding the numbers that we were seeing. So we had 9 students registered for half-day kindergarten going into last summer. We ended up having 22 half-day kindergarten students for this school year. So essentially enough for one section of half-day kinder, which is a half-time kindergarten teacher. And so we did provide that service this year. As we're working through the kindergarten registration process this spring and continuing to watch numbers, those numbers just continue to dwindle. And so that FTE just no longer seems viable to put that FTE, so that full-time teacher towards that half-day kindergarten option. And so our thoughts are moving forward, we will not be offering that half-day kinder option just based off the numbers and the requests from the community, and that we will move to full-day kinder across the board in all schools.
So is the registration all done?
We already did our in-person registration. We obviously keep that open until next August. Yeah, and so we'll take registrations as long as they come in. So we really don't have a cutoff date for that. But as we look at the historical numbers and the requests that we've seen, we've had less than 9 people request half-day kinder this spring, which is less than what we had last spring. And that barely developed enough for that half-day section that we offered this year.
Everybody's wanting full day.
So would we reach back out to those people that requested half day and just give them the fun news?
Yeah,
Works.
work with those families.
Works.
Yeah,
I don't see a reason to keep it.
it just doesn't seem like on the funding side and providing that ability
No.
to do that for the need that we're seeing.
Well, it's a classroom. I mean, how do you, yeah. We need that classroom.
Well, and if we had two sections worth.
Oh, yeah,
we'd
then
make
it
that
would,
work,
yeah.
Because then you can make it a full teacher. And one of the benefits we had last year, we had a teacher that was only looking for that part-time teach, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks. All right, let's move on to bond updates.
Just wanted to let remind the board that we're next Tuesday. We'll see how our community comes out, and I'm excited to see how that goes. Kind of give us a quick rundown. We've run through over the last month a number of different cottage meetings and opportunities. We've shared with a group of senior citizens within our community. We've met with the Chamber of Commerce. We've met with City Council. We've done 4 or 5, I want to say 5 different in-person cottage meetings at people's homes, where the people have invited their neighbors to come. And these are, I'll kind of focus on the things that we've done as a district, recognizing that there are some other community groups that are working towards trying to encourage people to vote in favor of the bond. And I think that probably is a good segue into making sure, felt like we want to outline a couple of things. One is to emphasize that as a district, when you see mailers, signs, and the only mailer that came from the district was the newsletter sized mailer, where we did not advocate for yes votes or anything like that. We were providing the information for our patrons. But when you see signs out there, that's paid for by outside groups. That's not taxpayer dollars that are being utilized. Same with mailers that may come. They're kind of those half sheet mailers.
Can we
Could have
need a
been-
little return address?
Yeah,
It tells you who it's.
And it's being paid for by other groups. And I think that's just important. There is, when people see that, there's naturally a thought, well, they shouldn't be using taxpayer dollars for that. And they're correct. We shouldn't be, and we don't.
Yes. No.
And so just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Had some other questions in terms of, will the school just be full? If we build it and that was a concern that some of our patrons have shared with us. And I just wanted to run through a little bit of what that means as a district. We'd be looking at, right now, our total elementary enrollment with the 3 elementary schools is, 1,727 students. For a total capacity of 1,606. So we are at 107. I mean, we've grown just a little bit since the last one. We've been saying 106, but it grew up to 107. And so when you look at the number of seats that are actually available, there are none because we're over capacity as a whole within the district. If the bond were to pass and we were to build that elementary school, and if we could just snap our fingers and it was ready today with that same number of students, well, you'd now have a capacity of 2,300, which would provide almost 579 additional seats that would be, open. Now, that would be spread across those 4 elementary schools, because at that point you'd have 579. So you would have capacity, if you were to balance it out exactly, which we have to change the borders, then there would be capacity at every school. And so every school could be, at that point, could be under capacity. If you then take, and this is the next question, and I've had several people suggest that we need to make sure that we're clear on this, that if you took the subdivision that was where the school is going to be located, there are about 800 and something lots available. When we look at those lots, we calculate for the total number of students coming into the district at a rate of 0.569. But when we look at the elementary students, which would be affecting our elementary capacity, it's 0.219. And so what you look at from those 800 to 900 homes, what we would anticipate based on the demographic data that we have is that we would anticipate somewhere around 200 additional students coming in, which would leave us with about 350 open seats. And this is again, there are our magic snapping fingers, where if we were able to get that school today and we took all of the building for that subdivision and said it was all available now. And obviously that's not going to be the case. It's going to be a 5 to 8 year process as they move through their phases within that subdivision. But at some point we would have those students and you would have growth at other places. But, and those are things that we just, we can apply our metric, our rate to those, but it's all going to be based on looking at that year to year. Another thing I just wanted to bring up is that some have asked, well, what are you doing for your demographic data? Well, typically it costs about $25,000 to run a full demographic study. So we don't do that every year. Typically we've done that every 5 years, and next year we'll be coming up on that. So whether the bond passes or not, we'll be looking to run an additional demographic study, which will help us as we look at the borders. And I think that's something that a couple of our board members asked me to share, and some of our community has asked to share. Well, what would it look like if the borders changed? And if I can, let me just, I'll move this one over here. I'm just going to move over there so it can be seen a little bit.
You're good.
I'll bring this closer. Now this is the same, if anybody's looking on the wall, it's the same thing that's over there in the middle of the whiteboard. But these are our current 3 elementary school boundaries. These have been in place since Purple Sage was built in the early 2000s. And so, we've been over 20 years with these same borders. Right now, this section is at 145% of capacity. This section is at 114, and this section's in the low 80s. So as you look at that, if the bond were to pass, then we would build a new elementary school here, and we would then reformulate all of these borders based on having 4 schools instead of 3. And that could take on a lot of different ways. One, you could kind of do a horseshoe with this school going up this way into the northern part of the district, Purple Sage going up this way, and then taking where our largest density is here in the middle and splitting those between Middle Heights and Mill Creek. But we get to decide what those numbers are so that we can keep those schools under capacity, because as we explained, there will be seats available. But if the bond didn't pass, and this has been a question that a lot of our patrons have had, is what happens to those boundaries? If the bond doesn't pass, we've already talked about the fact that we're going to have to balance, because we have 114, 145, 80. That's not an equitable way, and it's putting a lot more pressure here than what would need to happen. And so what you would expect then, just based on our availability, we could place additional portables if we needed to at Purple Sage, but regardless of whether we place additional portables or we just take the existing space at Purple Sage, we would be doing a net migration that way. So what you would look at is you would look at this amount, because we need to get Mill Creek's area down to 107%. We need to get Heights down to 107%, and then that should make Purple Sage about 107%. Now, it's not gonna be exact, but we wanna get close.
Mhm.
Which means you're gonna take a chunk of this section that is now going to be, that has been in Heights, that is now going to be in Purple Sage. About a third of the Heights area would be, or I shouldn't be area, about a third of the students that currently attend Heights would be moved to attending Purple Sage. What we would look at within the Mill Creek area is there would be sections of the Mill Creek area that would now have to go over to Heights. And now we would actually do that first. We'd move the section over here to get this down, and then we take what was made from Heights over to Purple Sage.
Mhm.
But it's that, again, it's that net migration. And so you would see some students currently in Mill Creek that would be in the Heights area. There would be some students currently in Heights that would be in Purple Sage. A smaller from Mill Creek to Heights, larger from Heights to
Mhm.
Purple Sage. So I think that's something, another piece that I think is important for our patrons to understand, kind of how that would
Well, and
work.
maybe note too, that Purple Sage has a Caldwell address,
Correct.
just as
Yep.
far as boundaries go.
Yep. So it's over there in that it's part of the Caldwell impact area.
Mhm.
Similar to our site over here.
Yes.
That's a part of STAR. And that's another question. And we've answered this multiple times, but a lot of folks continue to ask, and I just want to make sure it's clear. The blue boundary is the Middleton School District boundary. This is all is part of STAR, and everybody who lives in there, if the bond were passed, everybody who lives in that area would pay the taxes towards that new school.
And we
Even
have
if
to-
they have a STAR address, but the people over here wouldn't, but their students wouldn't come.
And even if the bond doesn't pass, we still have to service those
Yes.
kids.
And currently, they're paying for our supplemental levy,
Yes.
they're paying for our
Yes.
high school.
Yes.
All of those folks there. So I think it's important. The only thing that really changed was that STAR incorporated that part into their city boundaries,
Mhm.
which was not something that had been there in previous iterations. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that that was something that was clear, that we made that clear to the board.
But in going forward, I imagine we'll have a map that shows all the approved lots.
Yes.
Just thousands of them. A lot of them are on the right-hand side, the east side. And that's.
They
gonna have
are,
it.
because there's more
But-
farmland on those.
Yeah, and that's the biggest moving target is we don't know how many of those building lots will be built on.
Right.
And at what time. But
And then what we actually do, the process we use is we make, little quadrants, little sections within each of those areas with numbers of
Like
families
little
of students
counties
that live.
of the School district. you
Yeah,
can make
and-
like little,
And it does. And so then we start drawing lines to try and make sure that we're not splitting down a neighborhood road or things
Mhm.
like that, if we can avoid it, just
That
to kind
makes
of balance
sense.
that.
sure.
So anyway, we are in full, get ready to see what the community says mode. We do anticipate doing the last thing as far as a district. We have another cottage meeting tomorrow that has been organized up in the Purple Sage area. And then we will plan on doing some calling, just reminders about voting. It won't be convince people to vote yes, it's just a reminder that there's an election.
perfect.
And so we'll be doing some of that next week, and then we'll see how it goes.
Well, the mailers have been great and there's quite a bit more attention to this, I think, than there was the last
Yeah,
go around.
for sure.
So I'm very optimistic.
We just appreciate all the work that the district has done to get us to where we're at, so,
A lot of work. It's been
And
amazing.
and
Community
recognize
too.
that, yes, and
Yep.
all the community members that are participating, it's great. It's great to see everybody come together. All
Any
right,
other questions on where we're at?
thank you. Let's talk about graduation.
Oh, do you want an update on teacher
Oh,
negotiations?
yeah, sorry, I just already checked that one
I'm
off.
so excited about graduation.
I already knew that one, sorry, everybody.
So we continue to go through teacher contract negotiations with the Middleton Education Association. We've held 3 meetings thus far. Still moving along. We've been able to have good dialogue. No serious roadblocks at this point. We'll just keep plowing away. You were made aware of kind of our budgetary limitations and what we're going to be faced with in our workshop this afternoon. That's something that we've made clear to the MEA, but we'll, like every other negotiation, we'll just continue to work through what we can do to meet their needs and the district needs. So any questions on kind of where we're at?
No.
Okay.
Now we can talk about graduation.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that you as a board were aware of the details. We've got Friday, May 23rd, at 2:30 PM, public access at 1:30. It's at Fort Idaho Center. There will be golf carts at the bottom of the hill that will take folks that have a harder time getting up the hill up to their area there. Will you move up there? Thank you. And then just so you're aware, this Wednesday, our seniors start the finals. Wednesday and Thursday, they'll be doing that. They'll do the graduation walk at the elementary schools, which is always fun. Thing for those little kids to see those seniors in their hats and gowns moving through there. There's a senior awards night on Monday, the 19th. They'll have their senior breakfast and a rehearsal on the 22nd, and then we'll move them into their next phase of their life. So if you have any questions as board members we'll have a place for you on the stand during those graduation ceremonies, and
That starts at
it starts at 2:30,
2:30.
but it'll open up at 1:30.
1:30.
Yep. Any questions?
Nope.
Won't have to fight the wind or rain.
Nope, we won't.
Great.
Very good. Let's see. With that being said, we will dismiss you students, but you need to come get your agenda signed. Unless you really want to stay for policy. Good luck, baseball players.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. So policy.
Oh, right here.
So you got your hands full there.
That. Oh,
Oh,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
I
Yeah,
didn't know whether it's
Yeah.
gone out or not.
please for your.
Johnny, is that graphic that we had for the graduation gone out? Just a spelling error
Oh, is
on
there?
there.
Yeah,
Fix it right now.
I didn't know whether it'd gone out or not.
it's
Yeah,
on
well-
public.
It's
In the,
There's a C instead of a B.
under the 2:30 PM. Then PUCLIC.
Uplift.
Yeah.
I can fix that right now.
So, there you go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right,
Good proofreader.
let's move on to policy.
Want me to lead through this one?
Yes,
So the out-of-state and overnight trips, I think we need to have a conversation, and in light of our conversation earlier, one of the reasons we need to address this is primarily for some equality. And so if the board chooses to go a different direction, we need to be consistent in how we approach it.
Okay.
The currently, with all of our athletics, when an athletic team qualifies for a state tournament, we do not require that they come and make a request of the board for an overnight trip for that state tournament.
I was wondering about that, why,
Regardless,
why we don't.
a lot of times it's the time frame.
yeah. They
You qualify,
don't know
you
if you're
play
gonna get
district,
happen.
and then you
Goes
have
like
a
the
week,
next week. Yeah.
and then you end up at a state tournament. And which is what, we have a little bit more time between the CTSOs, our career technical student organizations. But really, they are the same kind of situation. And so when we look at that, the way that we wrote it, and these are some of the recommended changes that we would look at to try and bring that more in line with what we're currently doing with our athletics within our career technical student organizations. So if you go to that second paragraph, regularly scheduled district and state contests, which is what we currently do with our athletics, and events directly related to the Idaho High School Activities Association, and this is what would be additional, Idaho Career Technical Student Organizations, will be scheduled by the administration and do not need specific board approval. So it's simply adding to our current policy, those career technical student organization. So the two FFAs that you saw, only one of those actually meets this criteria. And that would be the trip to Moscow for their state competition. That's something that happens every year. And one of the reasons that they're able to do that is because, and give it the level of detail, is because they've done it the same way year after year after year. And so
I was gonna say FFA is a good example because they're set up a lot, there's quite a bit of overlap between them and say athletics, where we have, where I was an FFA here, same sort of deal. Every year you have your local competition and then you qualify for basically a district.
Yep.
And then you qualify for state.
Yep.
And so I can understand how if it's very regulated and organized the same way that an athletic competition is, it doesn't seem fair that the FFA has to apply for that approval every year, where say the basketball team, who also has their districts and state, doesn't have to apply. So I see the need to at least have some equality there, but I understand, Patty, and your concern about, particularly for things that are new and different or have novelty, they're not something that is anticipated on a regular basis, those kind of trips.
Jay, I'm going to say this document was not included.
No,
in
it
the
wasn't.
Record, so I don't have this to deal with when I came to talk before the board.
No.
Will this have been in our packet?
It would have been because we hadn't completed it. But this is why we have multiple readings.
This is to be the final.
Did you get
No,
that,
this
did
is-
you get
this
that
is
one
just
off the
the
board
second.
packet or
I got
just the
this one
policy?
off today.
Off of like the regular website?
No, Pam, this was not up until
Okay.
just right before the meeting.
Okay.
This
okay.
one, that
This one was not made available to us.
This is just a second reading. This is not, there would be a third reading of this, which is another reason, because if we had just put that forward and then turned around and said we would be wanting to move this to board policy, we wouldn't have.
Make us informed.
Well, right, and that's what we're trying to do. But the way that we're because I think what we're trying to do does address some of the concerns, but not necessarily all of the concerns. One of the things that we would include in there that is not currently done, that would be referred to both for athletic and the career technical students, is that they would be, every 3 months, building administrators will submit a report to the board outlining the trips that meet this criteria. That would be in advance of those meetings. So, like in August, all the building administrators would look at what they've got coming up and would send a report to the board saying, here are the possible scenarios where we might have students that would be going for these types of competitions. So that doesn't include things like national competitions where they're traveling long distances overnight, those kind of things. Those would still
Those would need
require
to
the
come here,
same
yes.
kind of process that we have in place.
Like the Washington DC.
Right, the Washington DC trip.
FFA, yeah.
But that also actually gives you more information than what you're currently getting
Yes, it is.
in terms of the, of what's going on. So that, because right now, we don't send you a report of what's happening with our athletic teams. This then gives you an opportunity as a board to see that that's happening prior to those going out. And so we would set that as a, essentially 3 times a year at the beginning of each season.
Mhm.
It would be, if the students qualify for a state tournament, it would be on these dates, it would be in this location, and this is how we would go about it. And that would be something that would be delivered to you as a report form.
Consent agenda.
It could be in the consent agenda, it could be a separate item that we just go through that, so you have an
I'd rather
opportunity to
be-
ask any
I'd
questions.
rather it be an item.
But then that, again, that goes to getting you more information than you
Yeah.
currently have on those. But it also brings the career technical student organizations back into alignment with what we're doing with the state
Mhm.
tournaments.
But knowledge and information for the board, and I understand that's a concern for Patty.
No, it would
Sure.
be nice to know, what band is doing and some of the other
Right.
Yeah, it's great,
organizations.
absolutely, to know what's going
Honestly.
on.
So the out-of-state parameters would apply for out-of-state trips greater than 50 miles. That essentially is primarily just those around Ontario. I mean, there's some desert spaces, I guess, we could go out to within that 50 miles that would be out of state that wouldn't be included. And then I've added at the bottom there that at the board's discretion, groups may be asked to report to the board, either written or in person, at a regularly scheduled meeting regarding their experience. The reason I didn't say all is simply because we have a lot of groups
Yeah,
that would go out, and I don't know if that's something you wanted for all groups to make some kind of report. I think that would be,
a long meeting,
it would be a long meeting, but if that's something that you would like
but
to
it could
see,
be
we
part
could,
of the report. I
it could-
mean,
we could do something like that. But it also gives you the opportunity to, as a board, say, I would like, when you see that 3-month,
mhm.
I would like to hear back from this group or this group or this group once they have looked at their.
Yeah, well, it's great to know what's going on, and especially if it's in a manner that's, efficient, we can look at and say, oh, yeah, this is what's going on. And I mean, I wish there was more time for us to be more involved, because I'd love to know more about what's going on with all these different groups, but having it in an organized manner so we can just routinely, systematically.
Yeah. And I think that's something that then allows for that to happen.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good.
So are there thoughts on these changes as they've been
Why did you change from 45 to 30 or recommend changing
simply
days prior to the field trip?
because, like, for instance, with these national trips, some of these have a pretty tight window once they've qualified to be able to get that
Oh,
back. And so some of them land within those 30 days, are shorter than the 45 days. And so I just did that to allow for the turnaround for those types of activities that have to go out quicker.
I'm concerned that this wouldn't put an additional burden on Johnny, because a lot of this is obviously high school events. as far as reporting and organizing all this information, or is there somebody?
Most of this is already done.
Yeah.
It's just would be something that, Andy, would that be fair that as far as the athletic events,
Like-
most of this information is already out there and ready at the beginning of a season. It's just now coming, if you as a board wanted to see it, you could go and see it, but we'll bring it to you.
I'd
So
rather
you can see it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and
I'm
it's
still on the team app, so I get it all.
like, I don't want to be putting a whole bunch of
Yes,
extra
I
work
know.
for those guys. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were,
Here.
those were the things that we were looking at there. Those are the changes that I would recommend. But certainly open to board looking at it from a different perspective, and my recommendation would be to move this to a third reading as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cam,
Yes,
I don't know if we'd look at it as a matter of policy versus practice, but I really would like to see, some reporting back of the results of these trips. I think it's been a real pleasure this year to see everybody coming in and sharing their wins and sometimes their losses and just talking about how things went, so we can kind of get a feel for how things are going. But I don't know if that's just policy or practice that we want to see it.
I totally agree
Because-
with that.
I agree, and it gives us the option to be able to do that. Mark's added language in there that gives us that we can just request that. And I agree with you. I think it'd be nice to celebrate them.
I think it's good for kids too, to be able to come back and share.
Yeah, I sure don't mind the time hearing about that. I mean, even if adds more time to the meeting, I love hearing about what happened, what's going on, and I just think it's great. I mean, like I said, if that can be done without burdening people with more stuff to do, that's
Well, it's
awesome.
our obligation to be here as a board anyway, whether it's through a phone call or whether we're here personally. So I think I would like to be more involved in what they're
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah, me too.
Any other
Anybody else?
thoughts or
No, I like
recommendations?
it. I'd
Any
rather
thoughts?
go third reading too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's good stuff.
Let's do policy 3068. And then we can,
So when you look at that, there attached is the newest policy. Mrs. Baumgartner has been able to get feedback from all the schools, how the policy reads, so she feels comfortable moving forward from there. And then you'll notice the changes are very minimal. And so when you look under nutrition promotion goals, it's just changing that to on the child nutrition webpage, because the website has changed since the last update to this policy. And then as you scroll down through the policy, the only other change would be underneath food, number 1, the whole grain rich grain product contains 50% or more whole grains would be another recommended change. And those are really the two changes that we're asking for this policy this year as we review it.
so
Love whole grains, that's what I do.
what's your recommendation then?
I would recommend, since she has been able to complete gathering the feedback and going through that process and the changes are very minimal, that we can move into policy at this point if you're comfortable with that.
Okay, anybody, anything to say to that?
And that physical activity, those goals, those are impressive goals.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm all for that.
All right, I would entertain a motion for policy 3470 to go to a third reading.
I move that policy 3470 goes to third reading.
Second,
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Right.
Aye. All right, I would entertain a motion to move policy 3068 into policy.
I move that we move policy 3068 into policy.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Right.
Aye. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the student trips that fall under A, C, and D.
Should we make,
subheading under section A, sub lowercase a, c, and d.
should we have a motion for each trip?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably best.
If I can get back up there.
I move that the Skills USA Academy Team National Competition in Atlanta, Georgia be approved.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
right?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're to C.
C.
I move that we approve the trip for the FFA National Leadership Camp in Washington, DC.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And then, go ahead.
It doesn't,
I move that we approve the FFA state contest to Moscow, Idaho.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I would entertain a motion to approve this football summer equipment request to IHSA.
I move the football summer equipment request to Idaho HSAA be approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. I would entertain a motion to approve the presented ELA curriculum adoption proposal.
I move that we approve the ELA curriculum adoption proposal.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Six, funny.
Yep, gotta read the whole thing.
I move that we move into executive session as per section 74-206, 1B Idaho Code to consider the evaluation and dismissal or disciplining or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent.
Second.
Go ahead and,
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Dempsey,
Yes.
trustee Wagner,
yes,
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Clark.
Yes.
all righty. Thanks for coming, girls.